This is pranayama. So pranayama is not just a lion's breath or ujjayi breathing or mula bandha with ujjayi breathing. That's not all pranayama. Those could be pranayama, okay? But having a breath focus as you extend a rolling thumb is pranayama, as much as ujjayi breathing is pranayama. Because I'm creating a circuit of the traveling breath throughout my body, through all the chakras, through the macrocosmic orbit, transferring to my hands through the microcosmic orbit, driven by this anahata chakra, or the heart chakra's expression of the pranic energy, into the body of my client. And then I am visualizing the circulation of prana within the body of my client. And that is creating a circuit between the sky and the earth and my heart and my body and their heart and their heaven and their earth and back again. And that is a big circuit. And that's what I'm doing when I'm doing Nuat as pranayama. And really the essential concept of pranayama is to breathe on purpose. Number 5 is Wai Khrruu. Wai Khrruu, or puja. Now, Wai Khrruu means pay respect to the teachers. Sometimes also in Sanskrit called pratyahara. Okay? Give credit where credit is due, make acknowledgement, a way of life. But classically in Thai, when we Wai Khrruu, we're paying respect to 3 teachers. Okay? The first teacher that we're paying respect to is whatever's your conscious conception of ultimate origin or God. That's the first teacher. In other words, all good things come from God. So the first acknowledgement, the first affirmation, the first why, right? We put our hands together and we bow our head and perform Namaskar mudra. That is the why. The first why. I why first to Great Spirit, to God, to the ultimate original source of consciousness, whatever that is in your mind. Okay? All right, the second teacher is the physical embodiment or representation or earthly manifestation of that ultimate original source. That's the second teacher. Now, the second teacher is a flesh and blood person. So this is the thing I want you to really get it. That the first teacher is big, cosmic even. The second teacher is flesh and blood. Now, we have sort of big examples of second teacher and we have small examples of second teacher. Big examples are like Jesus, or like Kuan Yin, Bodhisattva. Kuan Yin was a real person. Big teachers are like saints or sages, and by their actual physical example, having a life just as troublesome as yours, and yet overcoming it to be an embodiment of holy, or embodiment of sacred ideas. But the thing that's significant about these real teachers is they teach you. They teach you. So the small second teacher are your direct physical teachers who teach you anything that could be true. Because that's the nature of the whole circuit. Truth comes from the origin of all things. Truth exists whether worlds exist or not. Worlds exist as a result of truth manifesting. And we might qualify this truth, and we might say there's a truth of love. There's a truth of light. There's a truth, there's many truths, but the idea is that all that there is actually a manifestation of truth. And these ancient sages, our second teacher, okay, they are an embodiment of truth in human form. And so we have big examples, they're like saints and sages, and then we have small examples, which is like, my teacher taught me this. And so when I why the second time, I Wai to my literal teacher, like Pa Khrruu Samai. Okay? But in the very same moment, in the form of a hologram, I see a reflection of his teacher, and his teacher's 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 teacher, as far back as back goes, coming to me. And so, and that also relates to family, for example. When I do the second Wai in Wai Khrruu, I pay respect to my grandmother, because there are certain things that I believe that I actually live as if I actually believe them. The first time I heard about them, got the news of this truth, was from my granny. Okay? And I've told the story before, that for example, as an adult person, I generally think that it's not nice to steal from others. Generally. I think that's not nice. I think people who steal are not nice people, or at very least have problems. But I don't practice it, and I really try. I do everything I can. I'll give it to you before I will think of taking yours. I will give you all mine before I will think of taking yours. And that's proactive, not stealing. Okay? I believe it's that good people don't steal from other people. That if you believe this idea of running up behind a stranger on the sidewalk and whacking them in the head with a 2x4, knocking them down, rifling through their pockets, taking their wallet and every other thing that they own, and then running off to the ATM machine and getting all their money and selling their watch and all. If you believe that that's not good, and that's something that good people don't do, okay, I believe that. I learned that from my grandmother. Granny taught me it's not nice to steal. And I tell the story about, I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I was staying for the summer with my grandma. And you know, every day I would go out and play with the other neighborhood kids. This was pre-9/11. So this was back in the days where what parents and grandparents used to do with kids, even like 5, 6, 7 years old, is they'd grab them up by the scruff of the neck, and they would drag them over to a door and like sling them out in the yard, and then slam the door and say, "Be back for lunch," or "Be back for dinner." And that was about it. Okay, that was supervision, right? So I would wander the neighborhood with all the other kids that had been thrown out of their house by their parents, and we would play. And so one day after lunch, and I guess I was in my room, my grandmother was going to check on me, maybe, I guess, see if I was going to take a nap, you know. It's very similar to now. So she goes into the room, and I'm playing with some toys. In fact, I'm playing with a whole bunch of toys, which she's never seen before. And so she very astutely walks over to me and she goes, "Oh, I see you're playing with some toys. Those are very nice toys." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, these are the best. I love these new toys." You know, and she goes, "So those aren't yours?" And I looked at her and I'm like, "They are now." And she goes, "Where did you get those?" I go, "Well, you know, the kids like 3 houses down." And she goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, they were inside the house and weren't paying attention, and all their toys were on the porch, and so they weren't playing with them, so I thought I would just take them all and bring them home and play with them." And she goes, "You did?" And I was like, you know, I wasn't trying to hide it. I didn't really realize I had done anything unusual. And so I said, "Well, yeah." And she goes, "Okay, that's really cool. All right, let's pick up all the toys. We have to take them back." And I was like, "Take them back? No, you didn't. That's not going to happen. You know, they're mine now." As I think I actually said something to that effect. They're mine now. And so here's how Granny showed me that maybe we had a difference of opinion and worldview. Is she stepped over really quick and she got a hold of my ear and she gave it a really hard pinch. My granny was only 4 foot 8 inches tall, believe it or not. But she had iron kung fu grip. She had a kung fu grip. Okay? So Granny got a hold of my ear with Granny's famous kung fu grip. okay, and gave it a twist with the instruction, pick up all the toys, which I did, and then Granny marched me out of the house by the ear, marched me down the street by the ear, with me complaining and crying the whole way, the whole time, dragged me up the porch to that house, still holding on to the ear, and then told me to knock on the door, still holding the ear, and I knocked on the door. Lady comes to the door, can I help you? And she twists my ear more and says, tell her. And so, I stole their toys. I'm sorry. And the lady in the house was like, you did? And I was like, yes, I did. Now I'm going to be executed. The walk of shame. And my life is over. Because Kung Fu's got a hold of me. And so, the lady opened the door and I returned the toys and Granny goes, and I was like, and I will never do that again. And so the woman said something to the effect of, actually anytime you want to play with the toys is perfectly okay. It's just you need to ask first. And so we all agreed that I should ask first before I borrow anybody else's toys. And so then we go home, and you know what? Fixed, handled, done, handled. I got it. And not only did I get it, I've had it my whole life from that point. So for example, in reference to that one teaching of truth about tramp feature and stealing and misappropriation and all that, if it ever crossed my mind to take something that didn't belong to me, my ear would start itching. And I would have this picture of my granny's face, my grandmother's face. And you know what? Even today, even if for no other reason, I wouldn't do it because I don't know that she wouldn't come back and get me. I don't know that. I don't. Because she told me she would. And I believed her. So in that moment, when Granny gave me this teaching, she was the second teacher. She was Bodhisattva. She taught me a truth, a real truth that has stood by me as a truth in all of my life experience to this moment. Not a single thing I've learned has told me that what she taught me was not true. So she was the voice of God in that moment. And so when I say I pay respect to second teacher, that's what I mean. I mean it like that. And so it's both teachers like in school, but it's also like Granny. It might not be your granny, it might be your uncle or your auntie or your great-grandmother or, whatever. Who cares? But the point of it is, that exists. If there's any truth within you, you learned it from a person, and you owe them an acknowledgement. And so when we do Wai Khrruu, that's what I do. And I say all the teachers in my life who've given me that which I believe is true, which has enabled my life to have truth in it as an operative principle, I pay respect to you. Okay? And then the third teacher in the Wai Khrruu is the inner teacher. The inner teacher, that which we call the conscience. And we define conscience as an emotional realization of truth. And so the voice of conscience, that still small voice that sometimes speaks inside of your head as if from a gallery, observing you from the sidelines, but which always speaks the truth in your head. Okay? That's your conscience. That's the emotional realization of truth. Okay? And that is actually the third teacher. And so we pay respect to those three teachers because we want to keep connected to them. We want to be in the way of them. We want to be connected to them. And every generation has those who are that teacher for the next generation. Right? And so we honor that tradition. Number 6 is samatha. Samatha I call calm abiding meditation. And I put this little phrase there, don't panic. Things will change. Why do we meditate? What is the purpose of meditation? The purpose of meditation, the purpose of sitting, okay, is so that you can actually observe what's actually happening inside and outside. We get so caught up in what's going on in us and around us that we don't see it at all. Or we only see little bits of it. Just like your eyes are attracted to motion. Automatically, if something's moving in front of you, your eye is drawn to it. Okay? You don't have any control over that. So life is in motion, so automatically our attention is drawn to what's happening to us in our life. It's automatic. It's mechanical. It's part of the machine. Okay? But we have other capacities. We have the capacity to separate, to create a meta state. Meta means above also. It doesn't just mean love, but it also means above. Okay, or extra to. Okay, aside from. That we can create a meta state where we can more objectively see what's happening inside and where we can see what's happening outside. And this is the don't panic. When something happens, you don't panic. What do? Observe. First, observe. Observation is better than panic. Panic is entirely reactive. Reactive is entirely mechanical. It's a 50-50 chance that your reactive expression, whatever that is, will be appropriate. It's just as likely it'll be inappropriate as it is that it will be likely that it will be appropriate. So if you add a third step, a third force, this idea of a meta mind, of a place, a calm place where you can observe what's going on inside, observe what's going on outside, you are more likely to do something that's cogent with what's actually happening. You're more likely to make a better choice. Most of the wrong choices that people make in life is because they make those choices too quick, with too little information, and without actually really taking a minute, just a minute, to really look inside, really look outside as far as what is really happening. So calm abiding meditation is also sometimes, calm abiding meditation can be object focused or no object focus, but it's passive and introspective. Object focused, calm abiding meditation, or samatha, is when you have some thought, an image, a picture, a person, an icon, a passage, a place, singular, in your head, and you try to hold that thought. Try to sustain it. For example, sitting and looking at a candle flame, and we call that tratak meditation, is samatha meditation, because the object is the flame. It's calm, abiding, calm, and it's passive, introspective. There's nothing to do except to sit and look. Nothing to do. Just sit and look. That's all you have to do. Sit and look. And maybe, someone will throw in a real twist and say you have to breathe a certain way while you're looking at the candle. Okay? Maybe you can't just sit, but you have to sit in seiza, or you have to sit in warrior, or you have to sit in lotus, or in other words, there might be some other constricting criteria, but the basic outline of the meditation is the same. You sit and you look at an object, and that object's the flame. Okay? The reason why we look at the flame is because flame is in motion, and motion automatically attracts the consciousness. The eye is drawn to motion. The reason why you meditate on a candle is because it's easier to meditate on a candle than to meditate on a lawn chair. But honestly, if you could meditate on the lawn chair, you'd get the same insight that you get from the candle. There's nothing special about the candle. You could meditate on a yantra or a mandala. But you could also write any word on the blackboard, and you could calmly abide and meditate on that word. You would get the same result as meditating on the yantra. But why is the yantra better than just writing a word on the board is because the geometries draw your attention to a point. Okay? But so actually meditating on an odd object, a word written on a board, meditating on the tripod that the camera is sitting on, meditating on lawn furniture, meditating on an item of clothing, meditating on a natural thing, okay? It's all the same. That's what we mean by object-focused meditation. But it's all good. You don't have to meditate the same way or the same way as anyone else, but you need to spend a few minutes every day in contemplative attention of something. And it can be short. It can be just for a minute or 2 or 3. The idea, though, is that it's intentional. That you say you will consider this object for an expressed period of time without distraction or consideration of anything else, and then you do it. And as you do that, you'll get the benefit of creating attention. Okay? And cultivation of the ability that when something happens, you don't necessarily instantly and automatically have to lose your mind. It's not required. It's not required that every time something happens to you that you jump with a startle reflex, make some loud exclamation, run around in circles for a few minutes. Which way did they go? Which way did they go? Which way did they go? Before you finally settle down and go, what just happened? You could have done the what just happened first without all the other. But it takes practice and discipline. Number 7 is vipassana. Or as the Thais say, vipassana. Vipassana. Sometimes called dhyana. Insight meditation is active, where samatha is passive. Samatha, passive, introspective. Vipassana, active, extroverted, or extrospective. 3 kinds of meditations: walking, sitting, and sharing Nuat Thai. Find your real abiding mind in thought, action, and deed. So vipassana is the idea of maintaining a state of mind while doing something. Traditionally, the basic vipassana medicine is taking a short walk, turning around, taking another short walk, and turning around at your original starting spot. But vipassana could also be a 10-mile hike on the Appalachian Trail. It could. Vipassana could also be a canoeing trip. Vipassana could be walking in your living room. Vipassana could be walking on the mountain. You can do vipassana sitting. That's an interesting thing. How do you do an active, extroverted meditation while sitting? Well, for example, instead of having a singular object as the focus of your meditation, perhaps you have a long mantra. See, that's different. Perhaps you have a sequence or series of images. Or, for example, some monks visualize a series of Buddhas. And they might have the 100 Buddhas that they do a meditation on. That's a form of vipassana meditation. Christian monks in many disciplines, have saints. And so they will often do a meditation where they spend a certain period of time and visualize every saint. And now the next saint, 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 and now the next saint. Okay? Because all the saints on some level are supposed to be a mirror of godliness. And so even though they're all different, they're all the same. And so although I'm meditating on many, I'm really meditating on one. But I'm doing it actively. Okay? And then in Thai, one of the highest levels of vipassana meditation is when you do the meditation on or with another person. Generally speaking, walking meditation is always done in groups. 2, 3, 4, 60, 70 people standing side by side in rows. It could be 10 across, could be 20 across, could be 10 deep, could be 100 deep. The elder monks in the front, novice and initiates and glad to be here's in the back, and the elder monks leading the exercise and leading the steps and taking the walk, if you will. New people following. Okay? And they're close. There's always someone within arm's length. So if you're not paying attention, you'll step on the person in front of you. If you're not paying attention, you'll back up into the person behind you, or you'll topple over into the person next to you on the right, or you'll kind of bump over into the person on your left. And when you're doing the meditation, everyone has to stay relatively in the same space relative to everyone else the whole time that you're doing it. That alone takes a lot of attention. That alone. And in fact, it's quite normal for the newbies in the back to fall down. We're going to take 8 steps. I mean, come on, think about it. We're going to take 8 steps forward. We're going to turn around. We're going to walk back 8 steps, turn around and stop. And in those 16 steps and 2 turns, somebody falls down. Somebody bangs into somebody else, knocks them over, bumps into them. So in the front of the Vipassana parade, it's all cohesive and calm like water flowing. In the back, little ripples. In the back, little ripples. Like a tail that's got a little wiggle on the back of it. Okay? And the difference from front to back is level of attention. In front, the practice, discipline are grounded and stable in motion. And it doesn't matter if they're standing still, doesn't matter if they're walking, so they're the same. In the back, people take 3 steps, and if they have to stop, they fall over. If they have to stop and turn, they fall over. And the theory is that what we actually do in life is we have a little flash of consciousness, and then we throw ourselves forward into space, hoping to land in a good place. And then when we land, we have another little spark of consciousness, and then we throw ourselves in space, hoping to land in a good place. And that's actually how we make our progress. We have the illusion of continuous consciousness, continuous attention, and it's absolutely not true. We have a little bit of attention. We're here, we're not here. 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 But it happens so fast that we think we're here all the time. The closest illustration I can give to something similar, concrete, that you might be able to relate to is a movie, a motion picture. I use the word motion picture more than movie because it is the motion of individual pictures that gives the illusion of a movie. That you have, even in digital, this works the same in digital as it does in film. In film, you have a you have a camera picture, a photograph, and then you have another photograph, and then you have another photograph, and then you have another photograph. And it was determined quite a long time ago that if you show those continuous stream of completely separate and different photographs fast enough, that you lose the ability to discern the single image, and you think that it's one continuous image, although it never is. It never is. We watch a movie and we think we're seeing something seamless, and we're almost, whether it's like real life or whether it's not, but we think it's seamless, that it's actually happening in front of us as it appears, and it is not. It is one image, stop, space. One image, stop, space. And a conventional movie shows somewhere between 28 at the lowest and 60 frames per second to give you the appearance of continuous motion. If it's slower than 28 frames a minute, you have flicker. It flickers. And that is, you can actually see the gap between each frame. That's what the flicker is. If it goes slower than that, you can actually see, you start to see, brrr, and actually there's a point where if it's going too slow, like if it's absolutely going one frame at a time, you can follow it. You can see the frame, you know what that is. You see the next frame, you know what that is. You see the next frame, you know what that is. There's a middle speed where if it's not quite fast enough and a little bit too slow, you know the movie's playing, but you can't tell what you're looking at. But as soon as you hit 28 frames a second, you have a sense of continuity of continuous motion. And by the time you hit 30, just 2 frames faster per second, that is the standard speed of a standard movie. 30 frames per second. 30 frames per second. 30 frames per second is also 60 gaps per second. There's actually more space between what you see, where there's nothing, than there is what you see. And that is enough to give us the illusion of reality. Because we don't see the gaps. The purpose of Vipassana is to show you the gaps. And in this case, it's not a movie, it's my consciousness. I'm here, I'm not here, I'm here, I'm not here, I'm here, I'm not here, I'm here, I'm not here. And I think I'm always here. But the practice of Vipassana and the practice of Nuat on the body actually slows the frames down, slows the film down until we start to see the gaps. And eventually you come to the conclusion that you're mostly gaps. In fact, what you think of when you think you're doing a continuous motion, it's just like the exercise of doing flow. And you think you're moving and you're not. You think you can just say, I'm going to move from here to there without stopping, and that you can do it. And then obviously everybody learns very, very quickly when you're practicing flow that that is an impossible request. In fact, it's so hard as there's got to be a point in your practice where you think it's utterly ridiculous to even expect that you could do it. Nobody can do that. Yes, you can. First, you have to find the gaps. First, you have to see them. Okay? And then what do? You put something in the gap that wasn't there before. And what is the something? It's consciousness. You put consciousness in the gap. And then, as you fill in the holes with consciousness, reality begins to be easier to be seen. That's the theory. I'm telling you, that's the theory. All right, step number 8 is Promiwihan Si. Promiwihan Si. 4 divine states of mind. Also, you could say 4 unlimited states of mind. You could say 4 boundless states of mind. Promiwihan Si is translated as all those. 4 unlimited, 4 boundless, 4 infinite, 4 divine. Take your pick, whatever seems to work good for you. And they are love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Okay? And we believe that love is actually the formative energy of the universe, is love. That love is not a concept, it's not an airy-fairy concept, and love is not just a feeling. Love is actually the organizational principle that formed the universe. Love is the essence or seed of all creative process and ultimately all chemical process, ultimately all infinite energy process. Love is tangible. And so I would say, for example, that love is plasma. Love is the dark matter part of the universe. It's what holds everything together. And love is the primary energy that I'm trying to convey in my work. So as a human being, as a minister, as an elder, as a healer, as a medicine person, as a therapist, counselor, guide, the primary thing I'm trying to communicate is love, and about love and the nature of love. That's it. It's the primary thing. And I don't mean it in some airy-fairy sense of a positive feeling. Because Love is what keeps the earth in orbit around the sun, whatever that is. Therefore, it's not just a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's not a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's not what keeps the earth in orbit around the sun. Okay? And then I believe that I have to practically express that love. That's the second divine state. And when I do that, I am experiencing that level of divinity, and that is compassion. Compassion, by definition, is the practical expression of love. That's what compassion is. So compassion is not defined as kind acts. Compassion is not defined as philanthropy or generous giving. That's not compassion. Why? Because I could be a philanthropist. Even I could be a great philanthropist, and they would build statues and buildings and highways with my name on them. And the only reason I gave that money to charity was for the tax break. That is not actually compassionate. That is actually a humongous big example of ultimate selfishness and self-centeredness. Compassion is a genuine, practical expression of love. Okay? And when compassion manifests, when love manifests through acts of compassion, so for us, chirothesia, laying on of hands, helping sick people be well, heal the sick, have the blind to see, raise the dead, cure the lepers, help the diabetics and the heart disease and the MS and the fibromyalgias and the ad infinitum. Okay? This is the practical expression of love. And there's a side effect. The proof that compassion is an expression of love is the result is always joy. The result is joy. Joy is a side effect of the practical expression of love. It's a consequence. Now the Thais say, if you are missing any of these four things, you are by definition sick and not well. By definition. So for example, if you're a sweet, compassionate person who works at the food shelter and feeds the homeless and takes care of your elderly grandmother, okay? And you're happy all the time, and you seem to be a pretty balanced person, but you yourself have no conception of love in your life, or that someone else loves you, or that you have love in your life, you're sick. If you're a really loving person, and you are a joyful person so much that it just really gets on everybody's nerves, because you just joy all the time. I mean, come on. It's not that good. And you're pretty smart and mentally balanced and so on, but you do not have any actual expression of compassion in your life. You don't actually do anything to help anybody else other than yourself. You are sick. You're diseased. If you're a loving and compassionate person, and you're always trying to help everybody else, and you never try to help yourself, and you don't have joy. Some of the saddest people I've ever met are volunteers. And some of the saddest people I've ever met are healthcare workers. Health workers, sad people. It's like going to the mine. Well, somebody's got to do it. Now I'm compassionate, so I'm going to help. And in fact, a lot of people who start out with this idea of trying to make things better end up really angry. It's not only that they're not expressing joy, they're literally expressing something opposite of joy. They're expressing like anger. You know? They are. I'm working for a better world. I hate you. You know? No joy. Deficient joy. Equal disease. You can't, because the joy is what's necessary for a balanced mind. So if you don't have all three at the same time, love, compassion, and joy, you can't say you have a balanced mind. because those are attributes of a balanced mind, not attributes of intelligence. And we often confuse intelligence with a strong or healthy balanced mind. And they're totally not the same thing. Your ability to be happy mentally and to have great mental capacity has nothing to do with your intelligence. How about that? And even a person with quote unquote a lower IQ than you, who had love and compassion and was joyful, would feel sad for your brilliance. They would pity you because you are not balanced. And a balanced mind is better than a smart one. And see, that's a cultural thing. See, we value IQ. We value a certain kind of intellectual acuity. And that, by the way, is why the literal, cultural, sociologic gods of our country and our nation and the world are people like stockbrokers and bankers, mortgage bankers who sell offset derivatives of imaginary investments in order to milk the old people out of their life savings. We put them on a pedestal. These are the brightest of the bright. These are the smartest people on the planet. A lot of these guys have IQs of close to 200. Some of them even more than 200. They're absolutely genius. Really, you'd find a lot of them would qualify for membership in clubs like Mensa and so on. And we put them on pedestals. And what good comes from their intelligence? Smart bombs? Nuclear energy? Secret prisons? Social manipulation? Fascism? Fascism, by the way, is the political system de rigueur of smart people. Who become fascists? Smart people. But not loving, not compassionate, and not joyful, because their reward is always in the future. It's always projected. In other words, it's the result of investment. I work for the result of my investment. That's a whole different philosophy from I work because I am. I don't work for the future. I don't work for an investment. I don't work for. Why? Because that means that the consequence of my action is perpetually cast into the future. My happiness is perpetually cast into the future. My happiness is dependent on some future occurrence, which I am running to try and catch. And so what do I miss? I miss the gaps. And what are the gaps in that illustration? The gaps are now. The gaps are what is possible now, what is available now. What is available now is love, experience of love, compassion, the expression of compassion, the experience of joy. And then having a balanced mind, which means I can actually see the world more like it actually is. See, if your mind's not balanced, just like we would think a crazy person, a schizophrenic, a paranoid, delusional, neurotic person, that they have in some sense a distorted or twisted view of the world. And we say their neuroses and their psychoses and their paranoia distorts reality, so they're not really seeing the world as it really is. That's what we say. It's a problem for them. Okay? So I'm saying, if we then have the opposite, if we have the love and the compassion and the joy, which engenders a balanced mind, we are more likely to see the world as it really is. Okay? And so, promiwihansi, so the primary outcomes. If someone says, oh, Dr. J, what are the major benefits of SomaVeda Thai Yoga? I go, oh, it's easy. Love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And see, I want you to understand this too. Okay? The love is the primary motivation. In other words, the sincerely held conviction that drives the interaction, that drives the way of life. The compassion is actually the practice of what we do. It's our ministry. Okay? In other words, all the compassionate acts, all the good things, those are the expression of compassion. Okay? The joy is the reciprocation of energy, the reciprocation of lifestyle, the reciprocation of support, and the sense of well-being that comes from having integrity, and that our outer life work has integrity with our inner way of being and our inner belief system. In other words, my work is a reflection of what I really believe. I have a sincerely and firmly held conviction. The equanimity is also practical, because I believe that since being involved in this work and expressing these qualities and doing work which supports these qualities, that we are led to a place of having stronger minds, stronger, more balanced emotions, and so on and so forth. And so the equanimity is where the psychology and the emotional counseling comes in. And that's why our system, I realized this a long time ago. I was studying this, Promiwihansi, I was studying it. I was like, and I would always say, balance mind, balance mind, balance mind. Oh, joy and balance mind. Sense of well-being and balance mind. What is there? What am I missing? What am I missing? Joy, balance mind, joy, balance mind. Joy. Oh, psychology, emotions. That there's something there that needs to be addressed. And so, since each of these things, puja represents love, nuat represents compassion, prana represents joy and also well-being and satisfaction of life, and equanimity represents the psyche, psychology, mental health, emotional health, higher functioning. Okay?